What up, everybody? Mark with Cardivox Academy here, and today it looks a little different. I was filming some instructional stuff, some vocal tutorial stuff for Instagram and for Reels and Shorts and everything, and I was too lazy to put my camera back. It's usually sitting right above this monitor, and I didn't want to do it, so we're doing it this way today. But I'm stoked because we're going to be talking about Ov Sulfur. I never talked about them on the channel before, which is a surprise. It just never happened. Although I am talking with Ov Sulfur's management and PR to hopefully organize an interview here on the channel, because I know they've probably got some more stuff coming out. I'm not sure, but I imagine they do. And I'd love to have him on the channel like we've done with Ben Doerr and Phil Bozeman and everything. But I'm excited for this one because in the press, this did get spoiled, because in the press email that got sent, you know, it kind of like said like their first ever song with only clean singing. So that was a little bit spoiled, but I thought it'd be kind of funny. People have asked me to have talk about Ov Sulfur on the channel before, to finally, when I do it, do a song with no screaming. Because if this is your first Cardivox Academy video, I'm a full-time extreme metal vocal coach. I teach people how to do stuff like, you know, safely and efficiently. But I do a lot of clean singing in my band, not my band, the band I am a singer in, Kardashev. But let's go ahead and get into it. You can see a new side of the room, the nerdy side with the Final Fantasy stuff and the Sephiroth statue. And I've got my incense going because I like to do these with incense. So let's do it. Let's, you know, no YouTube cuts anymore. Let's check out Wither by Ov Sulfur. Here we go. Let's do it. Do it live. Oh, down here. This new setup is weird. Like, I don't know if I'm going to do this again. I'm like not sure where to click. I'm so out of my element. Here we go.
Hi, Ricky. I just called to wish you a Merry Christmas. So whether I hope you have a good concert this weekend.
Saying goodbye doesn't make this easier. All I can think about is the boy you left behind. I contemplate all the things I should have said before you left. Now I'm here with this emptiness and these thoughts filled with regret.
Let's pause there. That reverse snare tells me we're probably getting to something good, but let's pause there because that's what I do. I pause at the worst times. So a couple things. First and foremost, I wonder if this was an intentional choice. So at the beginning, we have this guitar, like this pick pattern on the guitar, and then we have a sound bite from what I'm assuming is Ricky's grandma, and you know, she sings like this, da 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 da, and it's in the key of the song, which is like, I wonder if they planned that. That's really cool, actually. That's really neat, and it was like kind of on time with like this little bit of a swing to it. Clearly, all these deathcore bands this year want to be like hitting us right in the fields, because we've had Carcosa release their album, you know, talking about you know, Johnny's history. We've had Lorna Shore with like Glenwood, that was a heart wrencher, and now we've got this, right? So this is certainly a year of feels for deathcore, but that's good. Healing through music is a thing I am very into. Now let's actually talk about some vocal technique though. So this, you know, the first singer, which I wasn't too surprised, but I was kind of surprised, I guess, to see, I believe his name is Chase. It's been a little while since I looked at their lineup, but to see Chase doing some singing. Now, the cool thing about the way that he is singing is he's singing now I don't have these melodies memorized, so I'm not going to try to sing what he sang, but we can talk about placements, right? So he had a lot of these like this like forward kind of like placement, right? One thing we can do, because again, I do a lot of clean singing. I never talk about it here on the channel, but I do a lot of clean singing all the time. One thing we can do to find certain placements is to play around with kind of like silly voices. So what he's using is what I often refer to with my students as the cat poo placement, the cat poo placement, or the fur ball placement. Like you walk into your house and you see that your cat pooped on the floor. There's a hairball on your pillow, and you go, ugh, ugh, ugh. And this is actually a really good way to get a sort of bright and forward tone, which is really good for like rock music. And this has very like rock music vibes, right? This is definitely, I wouldn't call it a throwback, but it certainly is. This song compositionally is carrying a lot of elements of like rock music from when I was growing up that actually I like. Like there are some things about rock music from like the 2010s, late 2000s, early 2010s that we can leave in the past. But this, the more somber vibe, the leaning into grit on the brighter vowels, these things that were not stuck to that time period, but certainly a part of it. I actually like those, so I'm interested in hearing more of that. But it's a good way to get this forward sound that's bright but not thin. So you can say like, I don't know, I'm just gonna make something up here. Let's do, hey, so I've got cat poo, right? That's gross. Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, you can get some of that rock tone. Let's keep going though, because it sounds like we're leading into the next part, and that's probably where Ricky's gonna come in, I would imagine. Let's do it. Or not. Okay, I'm going to keep this pause pretty quick, but we heard Ricky come in. This is cool. I also don't know if this is intentional, but it's a cool choice if it was. So you know how Chase, if his name's not Chase, I'm going to be so embarrassed, but I'm pretty sure it is. Like I said, it's just, I don't look at band lineups all the time. But he's using this, whereas Ricky had a lot more open space. Like, I think he said it's gone before my eyes, right? There was a really cool contrast because he said, it's gone before my E. So that's like a bright E, that E, it's gone before my E. And then he got really like tall in the embouchure and you could hear the back open up. It's gone before my eyes. So you almost said eyes, but it has this really cool, again, very like rock. This is very like best parts of like 2010s-ish rock music that I really like. So what we have here, I'll just mention this and we'll move on. But what we have here is a very cool contrast between bright vocals and strong, powerful vocals. And that's creating a lot of times when bands have two singers, especially when they're screamers, on a song, they kind of sound the same. But right here, if I was not watching this video, I would know that I had two separate singers working together on this composition. And I also like the family photos, right? It's interesting because when I was younger, metal was mostly about being tough, right? Or if it, if you were showing vulnerability, it was still about like tough guy subjects. But lately it's been like very cool in the deathcore world to, especially as guys, be like open and vulnerable and share our feelings, which I'm all about that. So let's keep going here. I'm like loving the family photos and I just think it's cool. I won't go too much into it because I don't want to like get off topic, but I think it's cool that we're in a place where people can share this sort of thing and where people can be open and we can sort of through artwork or through art have that experience together. That's very cool. Let's keep going though.
But when I close my eyes, the silence is all I hear. You're alone now. You're lost, so profound. The guarding fades from green to gray as you wither away. Day by day.
Yeah. See? Ooh. So there's a lot of really strong use of dynamics here. Moving back, we don't have like a monotone singing voice. Ricky's done a lot of pretty cool things so far. And one thing that's very true, you have to be a good singer, clean singer, to be a good screamer? No, absolutely not. But does it really help? Yeah, it does. And we can hear a lot of the crossovers here. Right. And I'm not just talking about the grit on his voice. Right. I'm not just talking about the grit on his voice, but I'm talking about there are some spots where he's and I don't remember what word it is, but where his soft palate is like closed up. So he's on a vowel, but right. And then he'll be on a vowel more. Right. He'll go back and forth between like a narrow. Do I even speak English? A narrow vocal tract, Jesus Christ, a vocal coach who forgot the word vocal tract, Jesus, Lord in heaven. A narrow vocal tract and an open vocal tract, right? And there's a lot of like his articulation is very rubber bandy. And what I mean is like, he's not doing like, I'm going to sing one of my warm-up songs is like Aladdin. So he's not doing, I can show you the world, shining, shimmering, splendid. It's, I can show you the world, shining, shimmering, splendid. Tell me, princess, now when did you last let your heart decide? Right? So he's got a lot of this dynamic open, close space. He's really nurturing a lot of the vowels that he's doing. And that's one thing that's really important about singing, right? Clean singing. As somebody who does a lot of clean singing, but I'll always consider myself a screamer first. If you slightly hit the wrong vowel, so you mean to do like a but you do like a like, who cares? Who cares? But with singing, you have less flexibility. So sometimes, I've never heard anybody get upset with me for saying this, but I have heard people disagree with me. But I think that in many ways, singing is a little bit more technically, I don't know about difficult, maybe unforgiving than screaming is, right? And I do know that Ricky, I don't know for how long, but I know that he trained extensively with David Benitez of Extreme Vocal Institute. And so I think that makes sense why we hear, a trained singing voice, right? We hear this isn't somebody who's just throwing a rock tone against a wall and seeing what sticks, right? This is somebody who's using it. And there's a little bit of cry, right, added on the note changes. Like, I don't know if this is exactly, but he doesn't say, gone before my eyes. He says, gone before my eyes, gone before my eyes. It's not that drastic. I don't remember exactly where he put it, but it's a really good way to add emotion into your voice too. You can do that with screams, but let's go ahead and get back to this. This is pretty cool. Let's see where it takes us. Nice. Oh. Yeah.
I'll awaken to sleep in your eyes. It may take a kiss or two. Through all of my life, summer, winter, spring, and fall of my life, all I ever will recall of my life
It's a really weird thing being this age, right? I don't know how old Ricky and the other band members are. I'm guessing we're fairly close in age. I'm 37. And it's a really weird thing being this age because, in your 20s, most people, and again, this doesn't apply to everybody's lived experience, but a lot of people, many people, most people, are doing fine. They might be struggling like financially or with other things, but like they are around, right? But when you get to your 30s, it's really weird because everybody starts like, and I'm just going to kind of say it bluntly because that's, I lost my dad in January of this year. And so like, this video, it's relevant to this year and how it's been for me. But so I'm going to speak about it bluntly because being blunt about it is what helps me get through it, not dancing around it. But people around you are having babies and people around you are dying. And it's a really, like, when you get to like your mid 30s, you start to be it feels like the circle of life is spinning around you and you're kind of standing in the middle of it and you're watching people sunset and you're watching people sunrise, and it's the strangest thing. And so it kind of makes sense that we're getting a lot of these types of songs, right? Because a lot of the people, I don't know how old Will is, but I believe that Johnny from Carcosa is in his 30s. Right. Will might be in his early 30s. I'm not sure, but it makes sense that we're getting a lot of these types of songs because like this is what my generation's going through right now. Right. And I'm not trying to say we have it worse than anybody else. I'm very blessed to, have a lot of things in my life that are going quite well. So I'm not trying to be like ho hum, woe is me. I'm just trying to put some context to why I think we're getting a lot of these types of, or I should say maybe more of these types of songs now, but that's just one possibility. There are a couple things at the end there. I know I'm mostly talking about Ricky's voice. Chase's voice is very cool too. What I will say that I think is interesting is it seems like Chase has a little bit more of like a press onset into his distortion, and I don't mean that in an unhealthy way. And again, this is a first time listen, so if I was to listen to more of Sulfur, more of his voice, I might backtrack on that. That's the thing with first times listens. Sometimes you're just going on your gut and then you listen to more of the band and you're like, oh, actually, I don't know about that. But someone in the comments remembers something you said like 6 years ago and they will not let it go. But he's got like a lot of the time when he's got a phrase that's starting with a vowel and there's grit, he starts with this a little bit of this. So there's that H, that aspirate onset, and then brace. I'm not used to my hand being stuck behind the screen. Yeah, I don't like this angle. We're not going to do this again. I'm not a big fan. If you like it, let me know. Whereas with Ricky, there's a lot of more, I would say, like a progressive engagement of the distortion, right? It's rather than like on-off binary. It's like a slow lean in on the grit sometimes. And actually, there was something cool that I didn't notice the first time. This is something you hear a lot with people who have spent a lot of time screaming, starting to sing. Now, maybe Ricky has been singing around, the house a long time or posting things online. But of the vast majority of his career that I am aware of, the vast majority, because, this is not his first band, not by a long shot, has been screaming. And one thing, I have done this too, right? I have done this too, and it's something that's very easy. So one thing that we do in death metal and deathcore and black metal vocalization, one technique that we use to preserve our vocal anatomy is instead of saying like a hard onset, like we say yai. So if you were to say like like too much of that would get very hard on your voice and it would feel very uncomfortable. So what you'll do is you'll say yai, right? And because harsh vocalization has such a wide standard deviation of what is correct, you can if like Mitch Lucker, he would full on yai, right? He'd really lean into that. Other people like to shorten it up, but I think when he was singing, I don't remember exactly what the melody was, but he says, "You're gone before my eyes, I watched you wither," but he says, "You're gone before my eyes, I watched you wither," right? Now, I'm not saying that is 100% there. I'm going to get rid of this thing. It's irritating me. No, I'm not saying that 100%. This is also distracting. There. I'm not saying 100% that is because he's a screamer. I'm just saying you often see that. I've done that too. In our own music, where you have this yai or y or ry before a vowel that would induce or that could have a pretty hard glottal onset to it. So a lot of very interesting stuff in the video. A lot of very interesting stuff. I think that my favorite. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. And then we had like those really nice, like wide panned, like. I don't remember what the melody was, so I was just doing some stuff off the cuff, right? But like those, like outside and around, were very cool, and I think that they knew that this song had like a vibe of like the stronger parts of rock music from not back in the day. It wasn't that long ago, but like it has good rock tones. Let's just put it to you that way. Good rock energy, rock ballad energy. And that guitar solo really leaned into that. And I'm not like the biggest guitar solo guy, but sometimes I say this and people get mad. I don't know. I'm a pretty big Metallica fan. I love Metallica. Yeah. Saint Anger, open snare. I've heard it a million times. I get it. But there were certain elements of that solo that felt kind of like early era, maybe not early era, but like kind of Metallica-ish to me, right? I'm not talking like Ride the Lightning. I'm not going back that far, but maybe like Symphony of Metallica, S&M. Like that's a good example. Even though that was a concert of a lot of their old songs. Anyways, I'm rambling at this point. I think this is a very solid song. I think this is a really good example of and hopefully inspiring to you. If you're a harsh vocalist out there, to get into some cleaner singing, to you don't even have to be like an amazing clean singer, but just to bring some of that into your repertoire. I know that when I started singing in Kardashev, my screams got a lot better. That was years ago, but they got a lot better. We had a song called Between Sea and Sky, and I did not want to sing on it, but then I had to. Another thing I will say, this is the last thing I'll say, and then I'll end it because we're already over 20 minutes here. But another valuable thing about how much Ricky is like opening up, right? It does give you a very like open and rounded tone, which is not bad. It's just what it's going to give you, but it's also going to make it a lot easier to like transition into some belts, right? So a lot of times when like you might be having this situation, and here's the thing, this is the same thing you might be dealing with your high screams. A lot of times when people are trying to do high screams, like like something like that, what'll happen is the same issues that they're running into with their high screams would apply to their singing voice. So if they were to do like that's what they would sound like. Obviously that's not going to work. It's going to be very uncomfortable. So if we think about, this is something I work with I didn't invent this. This has been around for a while. This is something I work with my students on, even if we're not doing clean singing, if we're doing highs. I mean, all my students are going to run some scales eventually, probably, but we do a yawn. But then I call it like a Disney princess yawn. We remove the dropped larynx, or I should say exaggerated larynx. We do right? And what you have is a neutral larynx, but the top of your throat is still open and the back is still nice and open, right? So we have this and if I do it's a lot easier to hit those notes because I'm relying more on resonance space to nurture the tone versus closed space to press into the tone. Anyways, that's all I got. I think it's a pretty solid song. I haven't heard any of the other singles, actually. I've been neck deep in working with my students. Some of my students are writing their own songs now. So I've been doing a lot of that. But I'm excited for this album. I think it's going to be good. If I love it, it'll get a spot on my vinyl wall. But that's all I got. I'm rambling at this point. Hopefully I can get Ricky on the channel to talk more about the types of things. But as always, many thanks, much love. I'm out.